Welcome back to Movies Recap. Please like the video and interact with it to support the channel to continue to provide this content. Thank you so much. It is stated in the opening title cards that the Allies have entered Germany in April 1945. Every man, woman, and kid is being pushed into joining the military by the Nazis, who are in a desperate state. Fighting persists despite the obvious Nazi defeat, and the German Tiger and Tiger II tanks, which weigh 60 tons and 70 tons each, sometimes outclass American tanks because to superior technology. A field where a fight has been fought is being passed by a lone Nazi soldier on his horse. He travels through the wreckage of blown-up tanks and cars as well as bodies. U.S. Army Staff Sergeant Don Ward Eddie Collier gets out of what seems to be a broken tank as he passes by and repeatedly stabs him. He releases the horse and goes back to his tank to finish the rest of his crew. Trini Gordo Garcia, Boyd Bible Swan, and Grady Travis wait. They are clearly tired and battle-hardened as they argue and berate each other as Grady attempts to fix their tank. Grady was called a dog, kicked, and told to fix the tank by Collier, who is brutal on his troops. Gordo was made fun of for speaking Spanish when he should have been speaking American as he was in the American Army. To the dismay of the rest of the crew, the Bible assures the crew that God was looking over them and that he hasn't yet called them home. When Grady has finished repairing the tank, they return to base. Collier gives his men instructions to quickly refuel, restock, and prepare the tank for leaving after reaching the base. When a lieutenant stops him and inquires about what happened to the rest of his unit, Collier replies that Tank Fury is the only one remaining of the platoon. Collier takes a time to himself and briefly sobs as he senses the stress and severity of the fight. He observes as soldiers' bodies are taken back to the base in trucks. Additionally, he observes the troops and his crew remove them. A young soldier, Norman Ellison, approaches Collier and tells him that he's been assigned to his tank crew. Collier is angry that someone so young would be assigned to his crew and questions Ellison. Ellison tells him he's been in the Army for only 8 weeks and has no tank training as he was trained as a typing clerk. When Ellison meets the rest of the crew, they all treat him with disgust. They search through his stuff and question him, seeming uninterested in the information he provides, as he is constantly trying to save his entire team. Bible questions Ellison about his religion and inquires as to if he has been saved. Ellison is told by the crew to fill a bucket with hot water and clean the tanks inside. Ellison enters the tank and discovers that the previous gunner was dead when the tank was hit. When it gets too much for him, he cleans up the horrifying remnants, including a piece of the gunner's face that was blown off, and exits the tank to throw up. When Collier meets with the other 3 tank commanders, it is evident that they are a close-knit bunch. The lieutenant informs them that they have been given new orders to advance to meet Baker Company and subsequently capture a nearby town. He will personally lead the convoy in his tank. Ellison is thrown inside the tank by Fury's men, who instruct him to shoot any Germans he comes across. The driver, Gordo, instructs Ellison to fire in short bursts to increase the number of kills. The crew uses coarse language to describe the crew speaks crudely about how they enjoy killing Nazis, having sex with German women, and what to do with Hitler. The crew has clearly been together a long time, and despite some occasional fighting, they are very close to each other. The troops see the bodies of victims, including children, who are strung up with signs around their necks as the column moves further. The placards, which claim that they were cowards for declining to fight for the Nazis, are translated by Collier, a German speaker. Collier urges them to fire at everything they see as the convoy passes through a wooded woodland because German soldiers might be lurking and preparing to assault the tanks. When Ellison realizes it is a youngster, he hesitates. He sees someone moving through the bushes, just as a Panzerfaust warhead is launched at the lead tank. Instantaneously igniting it on fire, Gordo calls it out. The lieutenant in the lead tank is entirely enveloped in flames and is screaming in pain as everyone fires into the bushes, shoots himself in the head to keep from burning alive. Collier berates Ellison for not firing a gun and tells him it was his fault the lieutenant died. In the bushes, they discover the bodies of 3 little children wearing jitterbug uniforms who were soldiers were firing at the tanks. Collier is leading the convoy as it travels on and meets Baker Company. Captain Wagoner, the in command, meets with Collier. Collier is asked by Wagoner to take the 4 remaining tanks and some of his troops to a field where men are being held captive while battling a German troop that is equipped with anti-tank weapons. They will meet up outside the town they must overtake after saving the men, and then they will all enter together. Wagoner informs Collier that he is aware of his reputation and trusts his instincts, and an alternative route for the mission after Collier suggests it. Collier shames Ellison as he directs the 4 tanks to the battleground and admonishes him to kill as many Nazis as he can. Tanks arrive at the field where U.S. Army soldiers are tented out. The tanks make a field turn and go toward a tree line where the Germans are located. The troops roll onto the track of the tank as it passes by them as they are lying in the field, finding cover behind it and following the soldiers as they approach the tree line. The tanks fire back as the Germans begin fire. Once more, Ellison hesitates before firing, and when he does, he wildly misses and takes too long to reload. The rest of the crew loads the shells over and over again like a well-oiled machine. The U.S. tanks fire back violently in an effort to eliminate the German anti-tank weapons before they can kill anyone. The soldiers emerge from behind the tanks to join the combat, and soon all the Germans are dead. One German soldier is discovered by the soldiers in the woods, and they carry him to the center of the group of soldiers. As they push him around and make fun of him, they all laugh. The soldier begs for forgiveness while showing Collier pictures of his wife and 3 kids. Ellison is dragged out of the tank after Collier commands him to get on his knees. He hands a revolver to Ellison and tells him to shoot the German soldier. Ellison declines, claiming he is unarmed and surrendering. And Collier hits him over and over, telling him that he's endangering the soldiers if he refuses to do his job, which is killing Nazis. Collier informs him that since it is the Nazis' responsibility to kill him and it is his responsibility to kill the Nazi, he must decide whether to kill or be killed. Ellison sobs and orders Collier to kill him because he is unable to endure the war. Ellison is placed in a chokehold by Collier, who also places the gun in his hand, his finger on the trigger, and his own finger on top of Ellison's finger. Ellison refuses to do it himself again, so Collier finally pulls the trigger while holding Ellison's hand. The other men gather in a circle and cheer. The Fury team tries to comfort Ellison, who is shocked by what happened. They talk with him gently, offer him coffee, and discuss the anxieties they all experienced when they first joined the crew. They claim Collier is a tough guy, but they insist that they wouldn't fight alongside anyone else and that they have been working as a crew since the start of the war, which is extremely unique. Ellison is advised to rest and eat by Collier, who then emerges in a more sympathetic way. Collier responds that he made a promise to his crew that he'd get them through the war alive and that their former gunner was the best gunner in the entire army, and now they're stuck with Ellison. They travel on to the town, where they meet up with Wagner and the other soldiers once more. They move slowly through the village, knowing that German forces are waiting to attack them. When Collier asks a visiting elderly German man where the soldiers are, the elderly man is shot in the head by a sniper, starting the fight. Germans are seen hiding in several buildings in small groups. Several Nazi soldiers run out screaming in pain as they are on fire after a white phosphorus bullet is fired through a building that had a disguised anti-tank gun in it. Before Ellison finally shoots them down, some U.S. soldiers just stand by and watch them burn alive. Gordo praises him for getting his first kill, but warns him that he should have let them burn to death. They keep going until they reach a building where a German man is waving a white flag. The German man responds when Collier calls him out by saying that the soldiers inside want to surrender. Collier permits them to leave the building with their hands raised. A grown-up in an officer's uniform then follows the children as they exit the building. Collier queries the German man as to whether the officer is the one who has been tying up kids by the side of the road. The male German nods. Collier gives the order to one of the soldiers to immediately kill the officer. As the troops celebrate taking over the town, they pilfer jewelry, alcohol, and other items from the town. They carouse in the streets, and Gordo drunkenly escorts a German woman to the tank while Grady stands by, waiting for his turn. Collier asks Ellison how he feels with his first kill under his belt, and Ellison tells him he surprisingly enjoyed killing the Nazis. They see a woman peer through a curtain in a building, and Collier takes Ellison with him to investigate. When Collier goes into the flat and asks the woman whether she's keeping soldiers hidden, she tremblingly replies that she isn't. After searching the house, he discovers the widow's niece, a beautiful young woman, hiding under the bed. They both had shaking hands from fright. Collier tells Ellison to lock the door while directing the women to take a seat. He casually converses with them in German. He requests hot water from Irma, an elderly woman. He presents 2 packets of cigarettes to Emma, the younger woman. In addition, he offers her 6 eggs to cook for them. As it appears that Collier and Ellison are not there to hurt them, Irma and Emma become relaxed, and they prepare lunch for the men. Ellison sits at their piano and demonstrates that he is a skilled player. While Collier washes his face and shaves in the basin of hot water Irma has provided, Emma is charmed by his music and sings along to it. Collier's back is covered in horrifying scars, which Emma and Ellison can see. When Collier notices that they are staring behind him, he warns Ellison that Emma is a good, clean girl and that he must take her into the bedroom or he will hit her. Ellison is led into the bedroom by Emma, who takes his hand. Collier advises Irma to leave them alone because they're young and alive when she tries to stop them. Ellison tries to start a conversation by reading Emma's palm, a skill he learned from his grandmother, even though she doesn't speak English. He tells her she has the rare mark of Solomon's ring, as he does, meaning she is kind and helpful. Her love line indicates that she will have one great love in her life. He kisses her gently, and she pulls him onto the bed. They leave the bedroom and see Collier reading a newspaper at the table. Irma continues to cook food. With coffee in hand, Emma and Ellison take a seat, appearing to enjoy the serene, refined moment. The remaining members of the Fury crew storm in, obviously upset that they weren't included. Grady and Gordo start harassing Emma when they are both intoxicated, causing Emma to start crying. They advise Ellison to take turns with Emma while they each have a turn with the German whore they left in the tank. Grady slaps Ellison around and dumps his beer all over him while Ellison attempts to fight him off. In an effort to appease the males, Irma goes and gets some shot glasses and alcohol. Grady and Gordo drink together. Gordo and Bible remain hostile. Collier remains quiet, reading his paper. Irma brings out more plates and starts serving the eggs. Grady steals another egg, and Collier gently reprimands him, informing him that the second egg was for Emma. Collier then hands Emma a plate. Grady approaches Emma as she who then consumes the egg. The team can try to mess it up all they want, he says, but he's going to enjoy this calm time. Intoxicated, Gordo tells Ellison that when their group arrived in Normandy shortly after D-Day, there were tons of dead Nazis nearby, but the horses they were riding on were still alive. So the crew went through the horses, killing them all. To kill a horse, he explains, you pet it to get it to trust you, and then you shoot it through the spine. All the men seem deeply affected by this story. Collier is informed that Wagner wants to talk with him by a soldier who just walked into the flat. While the crew is getting ready to leave, Ellison approaches, he sobs and hugs him. Collier is informed by Wagner that a pilot witnessed German troops advancing on a U.S. supply base that is home to many medical personnel and supplies. However, because he was being shot at, the pilot was unable to provide any information on the amount of troops, vehicles, or anything else, so they have no idea what they will be facing. He requests that Collier drive Fury and the other two tanks to a junction and to keep the Nazis from disrupting the supply chain, which would be a huge loss to the U.S. Army. Everyone runs for shelter as an artillery barrage hits the small village in the meantime. Ellison discovers that Emma and Irma's building has been reduced to ruins when he emerges from under the tank, but he rushes toward it in the hopes of saving Emma. If he is Jesus Christ and has the power to raise the dead, Grady brutally insults him, telling him to leave the corpses alone if not. After discovering Emma's lifeless body, he sobs his way back to the tank. As the four tanks approach the crossroads, a superior German Tiger tank that was waiting in an ambush position opens fire on them. Before the other soldiers could grasp what was going on, the Tiger killed one U.S. Sherman. The Tiger tank is surrounded by smoke rounds from the three remaining Sherman tanks so they can get to cover. They then make the decision to charge the Tiger from across a field, hoping to outmaneuver him because their weapons can't pierce the German tank's armor. Two of the tanks are destroyed by the Tiger, leaving only Fury. In order to shoot the German tank from behind, which is its lone weak spot, Gordo tries to position Fury behind the enemy car. The German tank fires a few shots at Fury, but they barely cause little damage. Once the Tiger is defeated, they are left alone with a broken radio. While watching his fellow soldiers kill, Gordo aggressively queries Bible about what God is doing. The Bible reminds the guys that God was keeping an eye on them and wasn't quite ready to take them home. The tank tracks are disabled while Ellison and Grady search the home to make sure no enemy forces are inside. They attempt to fix the tank. They discover that the farmhouse has been turned into a makeshift hospital, but everyone there has passed away. Grady takes a time to apologize to Ellison and remind him that he's a nice man, and the rest of them may not be, but Ellison is. Collier instructs Ellison to proceed to the mountaintop to keep an eye out for the soldiers as they arrive back at Fury. Ellison makes his way up to the trees, where he sits peacefully and eats his food while taking in the silence. He soon hears the Nazi marching hymn and looks out to see dozens of trucks and hundreds of SS soldiers marching. He informs the group what he witnessed as he sprints back down the hill. Grady, Gordo, and Bible gather their supplies and weapons in an effort to find cover before the arrival of the German troops, even though they are aware that only the 5 of them will not be able to defeat hundreds of them. However, Collier asserts that he has never fled from a battle before and won't do so now. His home is Fury, and he won't leave it, but he orders the men to leave him there and go. Ellison declines to leave and gets on the tank with him. One by one, Bible, Gordo, and Grady all rejoin the tank. They number the weapons, tank shells, grenades, and smoke bombs in their arsenal. They remove a dead body from the farmhouse, place it on the tank, cover it in an army jacket, and then light it on fire beside their baggage. They wait inside while sitting down. The men smoke. Collier cracks open a bottle of alcohol, which they share. Grady comments that Ellison is now a fighting, drinking machine after he has a large drink, and everyone cheerily applauds him and informs him that his new war name is Machine. Collier surprises them all by telling them it's from the book of Isaiah, chapter 6. Bible preaches to the men, quoting scripture, telling them that God called out to his people, asking, "Whom shall I send?" And a man cried out, "Here I am, send me." They hear the Nazi troops approaching and fall silent, bracing themselves for the worst. The troops inside the tank wait while more and more enemy soldiers approach, climb on board, and cluster closer together, thinking the tank must be destroyed and its crew is dead. Suddenly, Collier and his men hurl out numerous grenades and open fire on the Germans, catching them by surprise. The crew of the Fury fires round after shell, taking hundreds of German soldiers out with firearms. The farmhouse is attacked by white phosphorus rounds as the Nazis attempt to flee inside for safety. The SS soldiers get ready to use anti-tank weapons to start an attack. They approach covertly under the cover of darkness and smoke. Grady is hit by an anti-tank projectile that pierces the tank's turret during their assault, and Grady dies instantaneously. Bible falls over him and sobs for his pal. As Gordo and Ellison lay down cover fire with their handguns, Collier and Bible decide to take one of the turret-mounted MGs outside the tank after Ellison runs out of ammunition for the bow machine gun. They pop open the tank cover, throw out smoke grenades, and grab the machine gun and some ammo from outside. When Bible is tackled by another German, he jumps to the ground in an effort to take the firearms from the dead German. They struggle until Ellison emerges out of nowhere and shoots the Nazi. A Nazi boards the tank and shoots Collier in the arm before Bible and Ellison can lock the hatch and re-enter with the fresh weapons. As the Nazi is being dragged inside the tank, Collier uses the Nazi's own dagger to stab him in the throat. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anybody loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world is vanity. Collier reads from the Bible as the Bible tends to his gunshot wound. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh of God, along with its lusts, but the person who carries out God's will lives eternally. When Ellison runs out of ammunition once more, when Bible sticks his head out to hand them to him, he is shot through the head by a sniper. Collier gets behind the exterior gun and guns down as many Nazis as he can until he is also shot several times by the sniper. He crawls back into the tank with Ellison. Collier realizes Ellison's fear while also expressing his own through tears. Ellison wants to give himself up, but Collier advises against it because he will still be killed and subjected to torture. If he can see the hatch below him, he asks Ellison. Collier asks him whether he does, to which he responds in the affirmative. When the hatch is opened and an explosive is dropped inside, the Nazis are on top of Fury. Ellison is told to head for the hatch by Collier. When he opens it and falls below the tank to the ground, the explosive inside detonates, killing Collier. Ellison scrambles to make a hole under the tank as rapidly as possible. The Nazi soldiers appear to accept the entire crew is dead. When one soldier crouches below with his flashlight and sees Ellison, Ellison raises his hands, tears in his eyes. The Nazi soldier keeps quiet and moves on. After some time has passed, Ellison is startled to find himself awake. In order to fire them, he climbs back inside the tank, gets Collier's gun, and waits for the hatch to open. He notices that there are U.S. Army soldiers and medics when the hatch is open. As the remainder of the troops advance, they remove him from the tank, congratulate him, place him in an escort vehicle, and send him away.